Hey, what's up, guys? I am back for another video. And today we are talking about the Taylor Parker case. There's a new documentary out on Netflix called Maternal Instinct. It's the story of Taylor Parker and the murder of, I want to make sure I get her name, Reagan Simmons Hancock. And everybody's been watching it. Everybody has a lot of comments on it. You know, the first time a lot of people have been hearing about this story is through the Netflix documentary. I have actually been familiar with the story for a really, really long time because the body cam footage came out, I want to say, as soon as it happened. So this happened in 2020. I think the body camera footage came out in 2022. I think once her case started and someone put in a FOIA request, you got to see the body cam footage of her in the hospital talking to the police officers, having the doctor come in, who I unintentionally said the funniest line ever by saying, "Looks like a baby didn't come out of there." Like that, for some reason, just always tickled me. Like, why would you say it like that? There's been like a real fetal abduction. So I don't so much want to talk about the documentary. So if you're looking for an in-depth review, this is not it. But I do want to talk a little bit about the case, the social media stuff, and honestly, the person who played a huge factor in Reagan's passing. And I know a lot of people are going to not agree with this. But Wade, we have to talk about Wade because that whole situation with him and her is the most bizarre part of all of it. So a lot of people online, let's just get started. A lot of people online are saying things like, well, why didn't they cover this? There's so much more. Why wasn't this reviewed? Why wasn't this talked about? The reason why, side note, if you hear noises, my brother's dog is here, so wonky background. Um, why wasn't this talked about? Why wasn't this covered? There's so much more to the case. If they went through everything, this would have been a 6 to 7 part documentary. The same thing with the Nature Boy documentary on Hulu. Everybody's like, oh, they left so much out. They left so much out. Netflix and Hulu cannot have these 20, 30 part documentaries out there. That's a lot to consume. If you want more in-depth information about these cases, specifically Taylor's case, I suggest you go watch Rotten Mango on YouTube. She gives a lot of information. But there was some things that were left out to show the pattern of behavior that Taylor Parker had because she did. I mean, starting off in high school, all the lies she told in high school, all the diseases that she faked, and she was sick. She did have some illnesses, but she faked a lot in high school, all the way up to, I feel like her first real foray into really lying and being a different person, and that is the whole situation with Caitlyn. Really quick story about Caitlyn. Caitlyn had MS. So Taylor befriended her and also told her that she had MS. Of course, Taylor did not have MS. And how they became really close friends. They decided to join something called Jeep Club, which sounds fun. You join a Jeep Club, you have a Jeep, you go mudding, you go four-wheeling, you guys meet up. It's like any club you would join, and they're all having a great time together. Caitlyn would get really, really sick, and people would come visit her in the hospital. So Taylor would get really sick and come meet her in the hospital. But that to me wasn't the weird part of the whole of that Caitlyn friendship. It was the fact that Taylor is very, very male centered. That is the biggest thing out of all of this is that she is male centered. She wants men's attention no matter what she has to do, hence the lying about pregnancy. Because in her mind, if I am pregnant, I am now this vulnerable creature you have to love and take care of, and you have to stay with and adore, and blah, 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 blah. That's her assumption. But we all know who are grown and have sanity, which Taylor does not, that having a baby does not keep a man. So the reason why I bring that up, because the reason why Jeep Club didn't work out, not only because she lied about MS, but because she kept flirting with other people's husbands, constantly flirting with other people's husbands. And people would say, hey, can you stop? Hey, I know you think you're being funny, but it's not cute. You know, and even at the time, Taylor was married because she has been married 3 times. That was not in the Netflix documentary. But with her second husband, he was also just like, why are you doing this? Why are you flirting with these guys? What is going on? Can you stop? And so many people were coming to him and saying, she's flirting with my husband. She's flirting with my boyfriend. Or the men were going to him and say, she's flirting with me. I'm not down with that. I don't know what y'all got going on, but I don't want anything to do with it. It got to the point where she actually got caught in the Jeep having sexual relations with somebody else's husband, which was ridiculous. And she got removed from Jeep Club. Nobody wanted to be around her because nobody wanted the drama, the craziness, and nobody wanted to deal not only with the lies she was telling, but the fact that we can't trust you around our boyfriends, which shouldn't be that big of a deal. She also has lied throughout like her career, quote unquote. She's told people she was a doctor. She's told people she was a surgeon. She's told people she was a nurse. She worked for a staffing agency, but she got fired from the staffing agency because she wasn't doing any of the work. She was lying about her credentials. She was actually taking her boss's like signature and putting on email, so people thought that she was the boss of the job. She's a pathological liar. And not just when people tell white lies all the time, which can be annoying. She has, I think it's called something fantastica is a technical term for it when you're a pathological liar. She has that mental illness because it is a mental illness to lie the way Taylor does. And if they would have just gone through the lies alone in the documentary, we're talking 3 hours straight right there, just going through lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. It was a lot. So that's why they didn't cover everything. The other thing I want to go through, and this just popped up in my head as I just mentioned it, was the male, how male centered she is. She wanted to be pregnant because being pregnant got her attention, not because she wanted to be a mother. She wanted to keep the boyfriend. She wanted the adoration. She wanted the attention, all that, but she didn't want to actually be a mother, which is always confusing for me. Like, what do you think happens at the end of 9 months and the attention is over? There's going to be a person that pops out of you. And a lot of people have brought up online, like, well, why didn't they talk about the other two kids, the other two relationships? I'm almost 90% sure that the previous fathers of the two children, one of whom I don't think is involved at all, but I think the other one has had adopted her first child and she had a second child with him. There's no way that man wanted to be a part of this documentary at all. And I'm pretty sure he didn't want the kids to be a part of the documentary. The same way there have been other women who have been serial killers or killed, and the family members who have adopted those kids have been like, we don't want them associated with her at all. Or the same thing with the father. We don't want them associated with this at all. We want them to have a normal life where they can just move on and not have to do with it. Like Diane Downs. If you remember Diane Downs, she is the woman who shot her children and pretended like a black man tried to rob her and went through this whole court case of, trying to find the black man and all these reenactments and so on and so forth. And it finally came out that she is the one who did it. The child that survived and the other child that's still alive, they don't want anything to do with her. They've never been seen. I think the oldest one's the only one that's been seen, but the younger one, I think it's two who survived. One's got special needs now. Sorry if I'm confused about it, but their adopted parents don't want them associated with any of these documentaries, and it's never been talked about. So I get that's why the children were not mentioned and why the fathers weren't involved. So lastly, really quickly, I'm going to talk about Wade. This was the most confounding and confusing part of the entire documentary. And this might not be the final thing I talk about, but I think it's very important. In a lot of these cases where people have faked some kind of disease, when you're looking at people like Belle Gibson who faked cancer, or you're looking, who was the other girl who faked cancer? Hold on, I have to go back because I had it pulled up here because I wanted to make sure I had. Okay, so of the women who have like faked cancer and fake pregnancies, if you remember the Amanda Riley case, they also called that's the Scamanda documentary. Belle Gibson, like I mentioned, all these women had partners and they had personally like isolated their partners. So there was no one to give them additional information. They had made their partner believe that everybody's lying. It's just you and me against the world. So the husband kind of just believed the wife because it was them against the world. The same thing with a lot of these, fetal abduction cases. The wives or women who are faking pregnancy just make the man or husband believe that it's just me and you against everybody. Everybody else is lying on me. Wade didn't have that situation. He was still close to his mother, had a best friend, had everybody in his life telling him, she's lying to you, bro. She's really lying. We're not making this up. We're not trying to trick you or whatever. Everybody in the town is telling him that this is not real. And he still kind of shrugged his shoulders, which immediately I thought, oh, he's shrugging his shoulder because he loves her. Come to find out, Wade didn't even love her. He didn't even really want to be with her. So, dude, bro, what was the point? You didn't love her. You didn't want to be with her. So why are you accepting the lies? Most men in the situation with a woman they don't really like or want to be with would have been like, oh, she's lying about a pregnancy. Cool. Deuces, I'm out. But instead, he stayed and kept whatever was going on in his mind. And some people are saying, well, he seems slow. He seems touched. He seems this. He seems that. He seems not all there. Are we really putting that jacket on this man? I don't know. I'm not going to diagnose him, but it is extremely odd. If you don't like her, you don't have to be with her. You could have easily believed your best friend, your best friend's wife, your mother. After all these things happened, she said she was going to buy Pecan Point, this $1 million property that never came to fruition. She said she's part of the Morton family, the salt people, the Morton salt people, like the little girl with the umbrella. She said she was an heiress to that. How does that sound believable, sir? So an heiress to a salt empire is living in some small town. I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense. And it's just all these lies. Your own mother's car got repossessed. Got repossessed. Reagan told her it was a recall on it. She calls to get the car back, and they say no, it was repossessed. And she called Wade to tell him what happened. After all of that, why stay? What was the end game for you? What you didn't want to be with her, so what was the point? Did you really just want to be a father? It didn't seem like he just wanted to be a father. It seemed like he would just kind of resign to, I don't know. I wish Wade would have done a better job of explaining himself. For God's sake, she tried to set your house on fire to keep this going. Like it's crazy. And then the last thing I want to talk about is that fetal abduction is way more common than people want to talk about. It happens a lot. It's just so much of this documentary that just people are not aware of with certain things. Like there are a lot of hospitals and a lot of OBGYNs who have a quote unquote code pink when they have women who've had hysterical pregnancies or women who are dealing with postpartum psychosis after losing a baby, or maybe they've had multiple miscarriages. They all have a different term for it. Some of it's called code pink, or Code Stork, or there was another one that I heard. Was it Code Umbrella? It was something, but they all have these things because this happens pretty often. In Taylor's case, she's just a pathological liar who didn't want to face up to the lies, that she was willing to kill a woman and take her baby. The other women that you find that have done fetal abduction or attempted fetal abduction are dealing with severe, like Taylor dealing with a mental illness, but there's other women who are dealing with severe mental illness, like postpartum psychosis, like I mentioned, or something else has happened and it's kind of like tricked their brain, and they really just want a baby. They want that part to feel whole from the whole. And even women who don't harm the mother to get the child. There are women who commit fetal abduction out of the hospitals. That was happening so often. So why we have to wear armbands when we go in the hospital, scan your armband, scan the baby to get your baby, scan the armband, scan the baby to take the baby back to the nursery. That's why, to prevent that from happening. So it's really common, and it's just really, really sad. I think more cautiousness needs to be taken with women who we see are dealing with these types of struggles. We shouldn't have to have, like the hospital in the documentary, or the OBGYN's OBGYN's office in the documentary kind of had their hands tied because of HIPAA. HIPAA is there to protect us, to keep, police from using information or people just giving out your information or anything like that. It's there to protect us. But in this situation, if the OBGYN's office are flagged about something, or they see something that could potentially be dangerous, they should have every right to call the hospital or call the police department and say, hey, so we had a mother here who had a hysterectomy. She's now on Facebook saying that she is pregnant and about to give birth. We know that's not possible. What should we do? Can you send a social worker here to have the conversation, or some kind of mental health expert to have the conversation, so that we know how to handle this properly? We're already putting in a code pink at the hospital, but we want to make sure no one else is harmed. The same thing when OBGYN's offices or hospitals see women hanging outside the maternity ward who have there's no reason to be there. it should be okay to have call security, call a police officer and say, hey, we're really worried about our patients. This is what's going on. You tell us what we can do, or send us a social worker or mental health professional so that we can handle it. It shouldn't just be HIPAA means all we can do is be cryptic to other people who call for information. Because the OBGYN's office in the doc and, in all the court documents was like, we're not sure what to do, but we need to do something. So when her family members would call, or Wade's family members would call and ask him questions like, "Hey, so this document looks a little off. Is this real? Is it updated?" And they're like, "Oh, we can't share information with you, but whatever your instinct is thinking, whatever your gut is thinking, you go with that. Have a blessed day." So it's just a really interesting documentary. She's already appealed. Taylor Parker's already appealed. She was denied. Oh, there's another part that was left out of the documentary that's probably the worst part. So Reagan's favorite flower was a sunflower. If you watch the doc, her wedding photos, she had sunflowers all over the place. At her funeral, there were sunflowers all over the place. Well, during the trial, for some reason, Taylor thought it would be a good idea to wear a mask because this was during COVID. Well, not during COVID. I think it was coming out of COVID, but we still wanted to be masked up in courtrooms. Thought it'd be a great idea to wear a mask with sunflowers all over it. She told people to honor Reagan, which was disgusting, but they didn't put that in the documentary. I wish they would have, because I think that would have showed how depraved Taylor really was, and that she has no concept of human life, and that she just wanted to get what she want when she wanted it, and that's it for Wade. For That's crazy. Anyway, it was a really interesting documentary. Again, I suggest if you want like really in-depth info that was left out, go check out Rotten Mango, or you can just look up Taylor Parker's interrogation. There's a couple other channels who have had really in-depth follow up on the case. Go check those out. And let me know your thoughts. Drop down in the comments below. Like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.